So, good morning everybody, welcome. Pretty busy, it was quite nice around here. I've started this story in a good mood, I'm going to end up putting myself in a bad mood. I'm in idyllic Dor, a suburb of Sheffield. It is very beautiful. It looks like it's home to pretty wealthy people. But in October of 1983, probably the most gruesome and barbaric case that I'll ever discuss with you happened here. It's known as the Wedding Day Massacre. Now, Arthur Hutchinson doesn't deserve much of our time, and in the olden days doing these videos I never used to name the people, so I went to Columbine. I didn't name the people. I did the John Lennon assassination, I didn't name the geezer. But I have started to, and this guy makes me really not want to. This guy was born in 1941, the guy that commits the crimes, Arthur Hutchinson. He was born in Hartlepool into poverty. He was an illegitimate child, brought up in a family of sisters who teased him and bullied him about being a bastard child. They had different fathers. Apparently, he was a fairly pleasant boy, but he had a bike accident when he was 7 years old. Railway line. I'm gonna try not to have any humour in this whatsoever because it is so grim. And he was in a coma for 3 days, and he had a fractured skull, and his mum said it totally changed him. He went from being a fairly happy, placid boy to just this evil little, no swearing. And this culminated crazy. At 7 years old, he stabbed one of his bullying sisters with a pair of scissors. 7 years old. Before he was 18, he'd been arrested 18 times. And several of these were for sexual offences, having sex with people underage. When he was 22, he was arrested for having sex with an underage person, and at this time he was now above age. This is already escalating, this case, this guy. What is this? This is like a mini railway. He ended up shooting his half-brother Dino because he had fallen behind on the rent, and Dino wanted the money, and so his solution to this was to shoot his brother. And he was in prison for 5.5 years. And my, how we wish he stayed there. He was married twice, and he was incredibly violent in both marriages. So I failed to mention that of these 19 arrests before he was 18, at 11 years old, he was arrested for indecent assault, and then he went on to shoot his brother. So this is escalating. This is a pattern, and I'm no expert. Is this a house? How beautiful. I don't know why I like to be in the setting where these things happen. I always think it's a question I get asked, but I'm not going to tell a story just sat at home. I don't know, I feel when you hear when something happened, I just find it a bit more powerful, I guess. But in September of 1983, he was back in the eyes of the law, and he was being convicted for a brutal rape. And on September the 23rd, if it's wrong, I'll put a little date here. My source says 23rd. I've seen another say the 27th. My source. Google. And when he was at Selby, North Yorkshire, he was at their magistrate's court awaiting trial. This guy who had sexually assaulted several times, was up for a rape, had shot somebody, said, "I'm gonna go to the toilet." And the people looking after him said, "Yep," undid his handcuffs. And as soon as his handcuffs were released, he legged it. He ran to the first floor where they were having renovations. He walked past a decorator who said he then proceeded to jump head first out of the first floor of Selby's magistrate courts. Landing in the barbed wire fence and landing on the glass, which would badly gash his knee. But this guy made his way through Selby and he was on the run. And he made his way to Doncaster, where he went to Doncaster Hospital and had his knee seen to. Guys, do you remember which way I came in? You see why I get lost. And he phoned the police. He taunted them. If I've got any audio, I'll play it.
Paper.
Hello, this is Attribution.
Attribution?
Yeah, the one that those police are on 104. Tell you what, I've never left the area from Selby, right? I've never left the area from Selby. I've been here all this time. I've got this place called Warstop. I don't even know where it is. The only time I've seen was on the new. I'm living rough, like the police have said that the new one's living rough. That's what I'm doing, living rough. Yeah, stealing out people's back gardens, cabbages and things like that. That's all I'm living. I sleep right there and I travel at night. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah.
So what that's doing? That must be you know who I am, don't you?
Sorry, I can't understand.
I'm charged with burglary.
Yeah.
Right, so now you know who I am, don't you?
Yeah.
I'm not a hoax.
No, right.
So I'm not going to give myself up.
But this will lead us to October the 23rd. And I will briefly go to the house where this happened. I don't mean any disrespect filming somebody's house. I'm there very briefly, I've already done it. Just to give you guys a bit of visual indicator of where this happened. I'll see you at the house and then I'll see you back here. This is Door. Beautiful day, beautiful, well-to-do estate. I'm not going to be staying here long. The house was pretty hard to find, and it's probably that way for a reason. But this, that is the home. I will not attempt to get closer. I apologise. That was home to the Leitners. deposits, which was Basil, the father, who was a solicitor. He was 59 years old. Avril, the mother, who was 58 years old. Richard, one of the sons, who was 28 years old, was an aspiring doctor. And Nicola, who was 18, known as the Wedding Day Massacre, because as you can imagine, I can't see much anyway, because they were having a wedding. Now what Arthur was doing, what he did, his MO, can you see? I'll put a picture there as well. He was staking out this place. That's what he would do. He would come to an area, he would just lie in wait. The houses that are down here weren't here. You might as well look at me. There was nothing. I imagine the houses that are here weren't here, because the stories are that he was in a field. I think this is the end of the garden here. So in there would have been the huge marquee, and he would have been staking it out in a field. I don't know. I can't imagine this house was here. It does look old though. He was lying in wait, and he noticed. Might as well go back. He noticed there was a marquee, and he was lying in wait. He was noticed there was a wedding going on, so he just lay here, around here, just waiting for it all to quieten down. And after the wedding, Avril, Basil, and Richard went on to a party, leaving Nicola alone in the house. Now she was 18 years old, and I am not a female, but the dream of being 18 years old in a bridesmaid dress for a female, I think that's a big deal. That's like the dream. That's so many little girls' dream. And she stayed home, stayed in her dress, and just danced and listened to music on the balcony of this residence. And at about midnight, the Leitners came home, and very soon after, they went to bed. Now, the first victim was Richard, 28 years old. He went into his room and stabbed him repeatedly and violently in the face and neck. When he was found dead, he was half on and half off the bed. Then this awoke Basil. Basil confronted Arthur on the landing of the stairs, and he was found on the stairs. He was killed. He ended up on the stairs. He was dead. Now the worst was Avril. She was stabbed 26 times. A frenzy attack. And you'll notice how the violence has just increased. And you'll notice how the one female he killed was the most savage. When Avril was found, her defense wounds on her fingers went down to the bone. It was a frenzy attack on Avril. And after this, he went into Nicola's room. And can you imagine the scene? If you're Nicola, 18-year-old, just been having one of the best days of your life, and then all of a sudden this crazed man with a knife must have been doused in blood came barging through your door. I'm going to go somewhere a bit more serene for the rest, probably back in the woods. So, I wouldn't normally do this, but the rest of this story bothers me quite greatly. So if you're a little bit sensitive, it might not be the best for you. Nicola, 18 years old, her only sister's wedding, bridesmaid, best day of her life. I'm told every little girl's dream. Lunatic comes in, rapes her, covered in blood, at knife point, having just heard the screams of her closest family members. He says to her, I'm not going to use his name, he says to her, if you scream I'll kill you. And then forces her downstairs. And if you remember, Basil, her father, is dead on the steps. She has walked over his corpse, through his blood, trailing the blood of her father through the house, and when she is found, her feet will be covered still with her father's blood. He puts her in the marquee of the wedding where only hours before she was having a dream day. He ties her to a chair, rapes her again. After he's done this, he blindfolds her and then boasts about slaughtering her family. As he does this, he goes to the kitchen, he eats the cheese from the wedding, he drinks the champagne, nobody knows, he's never said, he's still alive by the way, he's never said what his motive for this was, but he was staking it out and he saw the marquee, he saw the wedding, he was just lying in wait. It is so dark, it is so scary, it is so horror movie-esque. And he would have known there would be food, there'll be presents, there'll be alcohol. And that's probably why he targeted this house. He probably saw a young girl, knew if he eliminated the rest of the family, he could do what the hell he liked. He takes her back upstairs, rapes her again. And then brings her back downstairs and ties her back in the marquee. And he leaves. As he leaves, he says, "Take care." He leaves at dawn, and a few hours later, the marquee people come, take the marquee down. Imagine them. Imagine Monday morning, going to work, talking about the weekend with your mates. You go into the marquee to tear it down, you're confronted with Nicola, who must be going through the most severe psychological trauma you could ever imagine or bestow on someone. And she's distraught, she's broken. Her whole family's been butchered. She's been raped. She's been robbed, she's been burgled, she's been assaulted. Every singular crime would badly affect anybody. She was exposed to 10 different bloody crimes, and the workmen, they confronted with her, they phoned the police, and nearly every police officer, judge, anybody in law, psychologist, nearly everybody, in fact everybody from what I've read has said it's the worst scene that any of them have ever encountered. It is absolutely horrendous. But Nicola, through everything, she gives this sketch, and look at who she was sketching. Now that's crazy, to be able to deliver such an accurate sketch, but that's the way I choose to look at it. Like, knowing how important this was, remembering everything, to get him is how I'm going to choose to think of it, instead of this guy probably there every time she closes her eyes. I don't want to think that way. She gives an amazing sketch, and other police forces go, "Oh, that's Arthur Hutchinson, he's on the run." So they had a name straight away, thanks to Nicola. And they know he's on the run. Hey everyone, so my camera died, so I'll just have to go back to the car and get my GoPro and finish this up. So he was the most wanted man in the UK. The incident at Selby happened at the end of September. The murder Happened October the 23rd, and he ends up being caught on November the 5th. The police try and do several things to entice him. They say the wound on his knee, he might lose a limb if he doesn't get medical assistance right away. But they end up turning to his mum. His mum adored him. They had a strong bond. But the police told her what he had done, and she knew that he needed to be stopped as well. It's also worth noting that at this time, this guy is calling himself the Fox. So when he calls into the media and the radio stations, he calls himself the Fox. The press don't give him that. Like, you know, Jack the Ripper, the Teapot Tinkler, whatever they're called. He says, I'm the Fox. What kind of guy this guy is. So they tap his mum's phone and he says, I'm coming home. So the police bring everybody in and he's caught about a mile from his mum's house and he is arrested. And he goes back at the home. There was his palm print was on the champagne that he was drinking. His teeth marks were in the cheese that he was eating, and his blood from his knee was all over the bed sheets. So, and this is the days before DNA, but he did have a very rare blood group. So they have so much against him, so much forensic against him, and in the 70s, that was hard to do. He was totally banged to rights for this. And guess what he does? You can guess what he does. What this guy needs. He needs attention. And so he pleads not guilty, making Nicola get cross-examined. Wowza. So, yeah, he makes Nicola get cross-examined, and this woman's been broken. She went through more in a night than you hope nobody has to put up with in a lifetime. That's an understatement, I'm sorry. And you think, this teenage girl, she's going to be a quivering wreck. Her family's gone. Her parents, everything's gone. But when she's in court, she is strong and she is not to be messed with. And she remembered everything, and she could not be made to back down. She was adamant, and she just absolutely destroyed Arthur Hutchinson's defence in court. And from moment one of her being attacked, she was already outsmarting him. It came out in court that he probably would have killed her if she had put up a fight, and she knew that. So she pretended to, I ain't gonna say enjoy, but she didn't put up much resistance for survival. and she remembered everything because she knew it would come back. And when she was cross-examined, she brought it all back, and he was banged to rights to such a point. Everything she said had worked. I'm really struggling to know the right words, but it got to such a point. She had destroyed him so much in court that he ended up just pointing to a member of the press and said he did it. So just this guy might have had the power when he was armed, but she, from moment one, was outsmarting him. And he got, obviously he was convicted for 18 years. Then I think it was Lord Britain said, that ain't good enough. This guy's getting a life tariff, which in England is incredibly rare. Not many people have a life tariff. The judge said that he was a decadent advertisement for evil pornographers. Wow. He has fought for being on a life tariff. He has appealed so many times, and everybody goes, once they preside over the case, this is the darkest thing. You are on a life tariff, pal. He is 75 years old, and I don't care if he is on his deathbed. He can rot and die in prison. And this location, two things that I've forgotten. He got hold of a video like a tape player while he was on the run, and there's a lot of transcripts of his own recordings of how arrogant he is and what an absolute prick he is. And these woods, wait to the end to tell you, don't play any wrong. The home is just up there. History does not tell us if he was in these woods, camping indoor. I think there was a lot more fields back in the day. Well, who knows, he could have been. But it doesn't harm this beautiful little suburb. It is very beautiful. Nicola and Suzanne, her sister, who got married, they all got different identities, moved away. They're not in the public limelight at all. And that is the end of, I think, probably the worst case that I'll ever tell you about. It's horrendous to research. I kind of want to forget it, but it's stuck in my head. I knew I was hiking around here and I saw a door and I knew that name, and I remembered this case. I pushed it to the back of my mind, and I hope I can do that again. You don't need to, I don't know, I should say like and subscribe, but I feel rude doing it after this. So just have a good weekend. Peace.